Hello,
Okay.
this is Sam Simon, also known as Dementia Man, for our weekly blog for the week of November 9th. And we are in the middle, or not quite the middle, but this week ends in the middle of November National Family Caregiver Month. What I didn't realize, by the way, Greg, is that this is also Alzheimer's Awareness Month. I got to
Yes.
say, there are so many different Alzheimer's months. I got confused. Maybe my next blog will be about that. But what I wanted to do is, first of all, welcome Greg Johnson to be my guest this week. Greg and I go back more than a decade. Um, and Greg is one of the uh, American and global authority. I say authority, but spokesman for family caregiving and the importance and the challenges. And we met in New York. I can still remember the lunch I had with you and Bob Chase. And um, I think I heard it during that lunch, but it happens so often. You're saying that um, we will, if we're not a caregiver now, but we're caregivers, then we'll soon be given care to. Um, and our conversation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about you in a minute, but I also want to say it up front. And you and I chatted just briefly about this. One of the things I've learned, okay, my prior play, many of you know it, Greg does, was stepping back for a second. The actual dance, Love's Ultimate Journey Through Breast Cancer, was my journey as a caregiver to Susan, my wife. She had gone through her breast cancer. And I had written a play about it because that experience so fundamentally affected me. Particularly, we were right up to the edge of the abyss, is what I say, when she was expected to pass. She didn't. She's a longtime survivor now. Um, but in some ways, working with Greg taught me how to be a caregiver, and it can be very, very challenging, and particularly family where but what I have learned and what I'm a bit of the topic today is the caregiving role, the caregiver, family caregiver, particularly for somebody going through dementia. I hate that word, by the way, but neurocognitive decline, cognitive impairments is magnitudes of order more challenging, I believe, than when I was caregiver or when the person you're caring for will always be that person. Susan was always Susan. Yes, we got dark sometimes. She had the chance to be strong and always optimistic, but she was always Susan. And when she was really sick, when I had to hold out that semicircular metal pan, those things gave her the shots in the stomach when we traveled. She was Susan, and I was doing it for my Susan. And now, I'm Sam, still Sam Simon, but it is possible that I will become someone different, not the Sam that Susan knew and married. And I know in our relationship, she'll still be there for me. But it is so different. And so, anyway, I'm sort of setting this thing up, but I did want to go into a little bit about Greg and your background, and you'll add on to it. But Greg is probably one of the most uh, well recognized and significant contributor to in America, if not now, broader world increasingly. Mr. Ambassador, we'll talk about that. Um, in family caregiving, and he worked in New York for many, many years for Emblem Health, and they had a whole office on family caregiving. And there was a place you could get some support for, at least for people on their insurance system. And he worked in helping raise awareness, provide resources and books and talks and suggestions on how to enable people to be cared for. And and I love it now, caring for you, caring for me. I've seen that. This seems a little bit newer, Greg, than
Yes.
yeah, but it is true. Um, and as someone with now early stage Alzheimer's, um, and I know I hear it all the time. Oh, you don't have it. I listen to you. You can talk. Let me tell you, I've got it. Uh, they've done enough PET scans with contrast. I'm amyloid positive. Sometimes I have to do this for people to convince them that I really do have the disease. In fact, I had an infusion today of one of the brand new medicines, which helps get rid of the amyloid plaque, called Consuela or Consula. But um, it it is an amazing gift to be able to imagine or understand our roles. And I think that you help us with that, your work, as well as you can direct people to resources and, um, but the respect and recognition, maybe that's the deal, that you can be aware of the challenge of what you're doing, do it well, and find support. So we did. We've been in touch for the whole time, but I hadn't seen the resume right away, and I noticed that. Well, first of all, you now spend part of your year in Bali, correct? And you work there,
Exactly.
and but you're in New York at the moment, and you have a title of as ambassador, which I hadn't seen before, and you are on the board of foundation in Bali. Um, you do a blog at least in the U.S. and maybe even, I don't remember if you daily caring for me daily um, podcast. I mean, I love it, and it's something for me. A nice Jewish boy with a nice minister, but I, well, you can just close your eyes and listen. You can hear the words and their meaning and the thing. So, with all that, welcome to the podcast for Dementia Man. And
Well,
next,
thank you so much, Sam Simon. It seems like old times. Maybe we'll sing that song. It seems like old times, just the two of us in front of a microphone, and I don't think either of us have ever found a microphone and a camera we didn't like. And
exactly.
I appreciate. But before I say anything, I want to thank you, Sam, for being a human being that has used and is using the arts and the talents that you have in such an important way. What you did back with Susan during the actual dance um, was incredible. And I always remember with great fondness having the opportunity, maybe 40 or 50 times, we even played Broadway, of coming up and having the opportunity to do the talk back after it. It was always powerful and wonderful. But the gift was seeing a group of people who had come together at the theater, which is what theater does. It brings all these diverse people, and suddenly we were all one because you had shared your story. And it's that wonderful, wonderful reality that pieces of you and pieces of me put us all back together. And it is so strong. And I have been thrilled watching you now in your own journey, taking and being willing to be out in front and saying, this is the reality. And I love the fact that people will say to you, oh, you can't possibly have dementia. Well, as you well know, I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic for some 30 some years. And I remember people saying, "Oh, you can't be that. You're just fun." Well, no, I was certified and praise heaven for it. But the gift of us being able to say, "This is who I am, this is where my life has taken me." And I believe it's the gift that we were sent down here to share. And I think it's so important what you have been doing and doing it through something that others can benefit by just seeing you there each week with your podcasts and so forth. It's absolutely brilliant. So I congratulate you. I could go on and on. I'm deeply touched by what you're doing because when I began 30 some years ago, family caregiving with Emblem Health, when they came to me and invited me to do it, I'll never forget it. I had lunch with the then chairman of the foundation. It was a nonprofit entity, and he and I were old friends, and he a retired clergy person. Now I'm a retired clergy person, and he's gone on to the next big meeting. But he and I would have lunch together, just as you do with your colleagues. And he was telling me, "Oh, we've spent a great deal of time dealing with the care recipient and dealing with the professional caregivers. We're going to start something new. We're going to start something focusing on the family caregiver, who for too long was the silent patient. No one talked about them. It was the first two legs of the healthcare stool, but the healthcare stool needs all three legs to stand." And I'll never forget when he said it. I said, "Oh, Carl, I think this is wonderful. Congratulations." And then he looked at me and he said, "No, I want you to do it." Well, little did I know that he was giving me the ministry that I knew I had been called to all of my life. And it was very unusual because I looked at him when he said that and I said, "Carl, my background's theater, theology, and international tourism. I don't know anything about insurance, and I know even less about the healthcare industry." Well, I've been blessed to learn a great deal in the last 30 some years. But I said to him, "You know, Carl, there is one thing, and I go back to it very frequently when I'm interviewed. When people say, 'How did you get involved?' I said, he asked me, and immediately, as a minister of music for many, many years, and then an ordained interfaith clergy person, I had buried more caregivers than care
Yeah.
recipients. And when Carl asked me that, I said, "If I can make a difference in that, count me in." And as we say, the rest is history. I had 25 marvelous years with Emblem Health where they allowed me to explore all the faces. And you were one of those important faces because you were a man doing the caregiving. That was a very special thing because we tended to always think of ladies, and we always thought about it's about grandma and grandpa. Well, now I'm older than my grandparents were when I was asked to do this. So, I'm pushing 80. So it's exactly the gifts that we have, but caregiving has been very special. And I retired from Emblem uh, in 19 about 3 years ago it
That's
was.
good. That'd be
And
20,
yeah,
20 something.
yeah, and yeah, 20. And then I had two goals in mind. I had already, because with Emblem, I had worked within the corporation, of course, for the employees and for the members and for that. And then we began doing it citywide and then statewide and then nationally as we were getting more and more and coming to have something called National Family Caregiver Month. Oh, mercy, we made so many trips to Washington knocking on doors to make that happen. And so it's always very special. But I'd also had an international life because I had been in tourism earlier on, and Indonesia and the ASEAN world had always been very special to me. And at the time I was considering retiring, the Indonesian government had come to me and said the question that I hear again and again: what are we doing with longevity? What are we doing how do we take care of them? And in the world's fourth largest population, 17,000 islands, 6,000 inhabited, there are a lot of people there with some very big social determinants for health and that sort of thing. So they invited me to do a pilot, and it was something I was very happy to stand up and say, yes, I'll do it. And so we began something which is now the Sahaja Foundation in Bali. So that's been one of my focuses. And then the other, which parallels a great deal of what we want to talk about, is because of the situation at the moment in America, there has been so much that had been offered that's no longer there. And I have always felt, and I had done test runs on it with corporations before. And so I have been focusing a great deal. I'm calling it corporate. I had wrote it down so you know where I am. Corporate concierge caregiving.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
saw that.
taking, yes, and it's taking caregiving into corporations because they do have the BRGs, the business related groups, and the ERGs, the employee related groups. And one thing that unites all of those is caregiving. And so it's been very, very well received. And I'm in the process with my tech team in Indonesia of taping an 8-part series called Yana, You Are Not Alone. I've done it before, you know of it, but this is particularly focused on my having a conversation with people in the corporate setting. So you would be the person in the corporation and I'm talking to you. So it's a bit different than things I've done before, but I'm
But you
thrilled.
know that I just want to reinforce the value of that. And and the value not only with the rest of the world and generally in talking about it, but getting awakening the corporation. I mean, it's to me in some ways it's like a duh, but many of their employees themselves are family caregivers.
Yes,
And
in fact, I will interrupt you just to give a statistic, and it's probably the only one I can think of in the whole time we'll speak today. But today, we technically use the term 63 million family caregivers in America. Of that, 70% of those 63 million are full or part-time employees.
there you go.
So each has one 24/7 job plus another job. And so I find with corporations, when we begin to talk about this and show those numbers, this becomes by providing education, resource, and support where they are. They don't have time to go to a yet another meeting to get support. The moment they
Right.
finish work, they need to go home. But what it does is it enhances the relationship between the employee and the corporation. It retains very valuable talent, and it helps the caregiver by having a continuing income coming in. So it's a total win-win situation.
So Greg, I don't think this is new to you, but maybe it is because of I keep running into this in my travels, but I have an idea for you.
Yes.
Have the corporations develop partnerships with the growing adult daycare systems in the country.
Well,
Um,
that's something that's very special. I've just begun one in Bali, so I'm quite aware of that one.
and we've been seeing some. I was a keynote speaker, I think now 2 years ago in Atlanta for the the Association of Adult Daycare Providers, a trade association. I did one last year in California at the California Association of Day Providers, is what they called it. And I just this year I also performed for one in Louisville, North Carolina. Who knew? And it is extraordinary. They're all a bit varying, but this one in North Carolina was extraordinary. But I mean, it's almost a duh. Of course, you're all so far ahead on these things. But as soon as you said it, I read about it. It's a duh. Like obviously, because the challenge of living and working and being present when, whether it's a spouse or even a parent, is in or near your care. You've got to go to work, and is perhaps I thought it is an extraordinarily challenging, if not the potentially most challenging circumstance that one could imagine for a spouse who, and again, I feel like I'm projecting you, but even in this context, the caregiver wants to be good for their job and for their loved one. And it can seem impossible to do both. And then they get into the more complicated questions of, do you hire a caregiver? Do you bring them in while you're at work? Do you have the money to do that? And if the phone, and it's all, none of it's easy. And then I will put on the table so we'll get to it. One of the things that I had not run into before, and now is an essential part of what I am doing, is the idea that life with certain diseases isn't worth living. And as you know, and you're Jewish adjacent, if not Jewish, and a minister, choosing life but there's this accompanied suicide where it gets so hard, we need to go to Switzerland and let you kill yourself kind of idea, which is not small in this arena. Um, and so the need to avoid that and to enable the person who has a real job to be able to work should be, and then should be, I guess, good incentive for corporations to understand that they're going to have a big role, and it's in their interest to make those
It totally
moments
is.
in life.
And more are seeing it. And one of the great leaders is a great friend of yours and of mine, and that is Tannenbaum here in New York. They are not in, they are doing programs in healthcare, but I mean, they originally started their corporate program dealing with interreligious tolerance and education. And I recently had the privilege of addressing their corporate summit. They now have 90 some major corporations in America who are part of the Tannenbaum corporate team. And I was blown away by the types of things that, first of all, as a clergy person, the things that were happening within the various corporations, the conversations that were taking place, the depth to which things were happening. Having an ITFAR within a corporation just blew me away. And I mean, they'd had a Seder, and then they decided they would have an Iftar. I mean, for those who don't know, that's part of the Muslim tradition. And I was very impressed by that and thought, yes, yes, yes. And in fact, it was one of the times in my life I had prepared something for this group. And I looked at them and I said, you're much too advanced for what I've prepared. Throw it away, and I'm doing a new one for you. It was fabulous. And I had no trouble saying that at all because they were already doing it. And so corporations are stepping up to that, and particularly now, back in 2023, when AARP did that wonderful report titled Valuing the Invaluable. And at that point, it was 53 million caregivers. But they came out with that wonderful report. It was during the Biden administration, saying that the value of family caregivers, if they were being paid, and they aren't by and large, would equal 600 billion US dollars. Well, I mean, that's bigger than almost any department that is in Washington. And of course, everyone got excited with that. Corporations got excited by it. People who were selling things got excited by it. And government got excited by it. So something occurred there that, and it was a powerful thing. We were invited, a large number of us, to the White House, and there was a wonderful celebration of caregiving, but something occurred that I never thought I would live to see. And it was President Biden speaking and telling his caregiving story after his wife had been killed and his daughter, so forth. There stood the President of the United States, not as a president, but as a caregiver, telling the story to a crowd of people who have devoted their lives to caregiving. And then he sat down and signed some 360 executive orders, which were then implemented throughout the government. Well, of course, much of that has changed presently, but the talent is there, the ideas are there, and I am keeping a close eye on a lot of people who are just in transition at the moment. But it doesn't mean that we, sit down and say, woe is me. But this is the opportunity, and I say it constantly to corporations. This is the opportunity for you to help support your employee in a way like you have never done before. And I invite employees when I talk to them or organizations, go talk to your corporate leaders. Tell them this is the situation. We need education. No one goes to school to be a family caregiver.
Right.
You wake up one day and, yeah, I'm in the business. And by the way, the quote that you were thinking was Rosalind Carter. I was going to say Rosalind Russell, my background. Rosalind Carter. She has been quoted as saying, and it's true, in life, there are really only four type of persons. There are those of us who are family caregivers today. I'm one. Susan is one. You've been one. There are those who have been caregivers. There are those of us who will be caregivers. And I'm a multiple stroke survivor. So there are those of us who will be cared for. So, I mean, it really is powerful.
And it is everywhere. I want to take a moment because I don't know if I've told this story. I might have before, but I think you'll appreciate it. Because I think it is so powerful a demonstration of the challenge of at least in the cognitive impairment, the neurocognitive world. I was at the burial ceremony for a man who belonged to our synagogue. He had Alzheimer's and he passed away. And we were sitting in the back room, before everybody goes up into the sanctuary for the funeral. And his wife was there, and I overheard her talking to one of her friends. And she talked about how much her husband had wanted to live. And, and I knew him and I knew he was, and I'm sure this is true. She said, even towards the end, he would try to go outside. He'd scoot on his bottom to be able to go outside and see the sun. But then she said, I'm so happy he's dead. And it took my breath away, but I think the story is a bright light on how challenging it could be. It's not that she really wanted him to have had the disease and die, but the challenges for both of them, it seems to me, drove her to that moment. And in some ways it's shocking, but I also think the fact that it would happen tells you just how challenging in this disease, this unique nature of it, that it can have that impact on someone and that feeling. And they've been married for, one of these, like you're always married. Like I've always been married. We're at 59 years, 2 months and 7 days, but who's counting? Oh, 17 days, sorry. And it's a line to play. I have to be ready on Sunday to be able to say 59 years, 2 months and 19 days. So, and yet, and I'm conscious of it. I mean, I really worry about, and I'm not sure you know about this. You may have, it's in the play, but Susan insisted that we talk to a social worker once. And again, people see me and then we do this. Oh, you don't have it, Sam. Well, I get agitated real quick. And I don't always see it, but what's important, I don't see it coming. And I can't stop it immediately. And what I didn't understand is it could be scary. She insisted we talk to a social worker. And we sat here on the same computer, but it was remote. And she couldn't tell me. And she couldn't say the words to me, but she could tell somebody, a social worker, with me sitting next to her so I would hear her. And that is, she at times is afraid I might hurt her. Not intentionally, but she couldn't even say that without having a third party and even the safety of that moment. And anyway, it's just so complicated. And you're in such intimate contact with your loved ones. And again, with this particular disease, it's such a challenge. So I so admire your work in getting the voice out. First of all, is this new initiative of corporations under an umbrella where people can get information or support that work?
Well, at this particular point, it would be strictly it's you know how I function. I start something and I think that it's quite interesting, and then I move it along. The so it basically is, if they make contact with me, it's no problem. It's Greg Johnson at gjp-international.com.
Yeah, I saw that you the corporate
Yeah,
work you
and
do.
that, I mean, if they would write to me, I'll be happy to be in contact and to share the things that we're doing. I'm really going into a full launch in the new year because I'm busily taping. Lately, I've been taping about 4 o'clock in the morning because for some reason I'm the best in the morning. Me
Yes,
and Donnie's on an early morning schedule, so at the airport, so I'm wide awake, and I've been taping, and then that allows me to get it to Indonesia where they begin doing the tech work. We have a wonderful group of people over there who are doing all the things that I don't even know what they're really doing, except that it's wonderful when they send it back.
and I'm gonna, if this is all right with you, I think I've got up that I can share just the real briefly the contact.
Oh, lovely. Please.
Let me
Or
give it a
follow it up,
try.
whatever. I'm only too happy to do that. Uh,
Okay, okay. I
there we
think it's
go.
up. And Uniting the World and Family Caregiving, Greg
Yes,
Johnson Partnerships and International Inc.
yes.
That's your focus and mission. That's Donnie, who um,
That's my partner. And
your partner.
that's in the middle, that's actually Dr. Suka, who is the chairman of the Sahaja Foundation that we started in Bali. And while I was in Bali, he said to me, "Oh, I have to be gone for 3 days. I'm addressing the World Health Organization's minister conference in Fiji." I said, "I think we can let you go."
I'm doing this in real time.
And
So,
there is the Tannenbaum talk,
right, and there's
the email. Yes.
your email.
Oh,
So,
Sam, you're wonderful.
well, no, I want people to know this. Let's stop sharing now. It's just you've always been, Greg, such a resource, and um, I don't know what I would have done. Uh, it's all the family caregiver journey. It can be complicated. I'm surprised sometimes how complicated, because Susan and I don't question our commitment to each other, and we're very fortunate with kids. We don't have family dynamics, but even that makes it more complicated occasionally if there are different parts of the family that are um, unhappy or want more, or but it was so it was a gift to me to learn from you and see and understand this that this was a real role in life
Yes.
that um, not just an everyday trip to the grocery store, but it is part of your life in a deep, deep way to have that as a quote, a job or something we're responsible for. Um, and so you have been an enormous resource. But I want to,
Thank
you know, I want to go to your point about how important it is now too, when resources are scarce. Um, and there is another problem which you don't know about. There is such, well, not just in the family caregiving, but more in the cognitive Alzheimer's dementia world. In that world, the world I'm in, there's so much bad information. There's a lot of what I consider schemes and false hopes. And, you know, there's even a book by a well-known guy called The End of Alzheimer's, which makes you think if you go and spend 10,000 a week at one of their clinics, you'll get cured. There's another guy out there who I actually like and respect, um, who had Alzheimer's, and he is behind the effort. And there is an effort, a major effort, to change the D word, get rid of dementia, just like we got rid of retarded. You know, it's a cognitive disorder. Dementia suggests a monster, and a demented person is not, doesn't mean there's no, it's not a disease, it's not a diagnosis. It's a condition where your cognitive capacity has gone down a certain level. But the, the medical world has, in 2013, changed the DSM-5. It's neurocognitive disorder, major and minor. It's like we don't say anybody's retarded now. We have a wide variety of what exactly is wrong with them. And so we have a world built up around this terrible world, which just only imagines the end stages. And the end stages are the result of a very long trip of time, and almost always equal or greater challenge for the person who's the partner in that, and or other family members. They're family caregiver. It's just not the spouse, that's a family
No,
caregiver.
no, we've been talking basically of the primary caregiver, but there's a whole team of them, and thank heaven for that because they can step up to the plate as we not go through it. You know my favorite. We don't go through anything. I pray we grow through it, and we grow physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
And yeah, again, you and I are on the same thing about the spiritual nature of it.
Absolutely.
And
Ed, I mean, I'm all right. Sam, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And
yes,
all you need to do is get any of the major diseases, and I put alcoholism right in there with it. We come to find out more and more we go within and we grow through the experience. And then Ram Dass says it in, I think, my favorite of all his quotes. What is life all about? We're walking each other home. And I love that phrase.
and I do too. I'm not. I worry that we need to keep this into a time that people will watch and stay. And I love that perhaps it's a period exclamation
Yes.
point on this thing. And I'm glad we were able to share your contact information.
Well,
And
I so appreciate this. It's wonderful what you're doing, Sam.
well, and I'm lucky. Um, I don't know. I think I couldn't imagine it. I mean, I started out very tentatively in New York. You were there from the very beginning. And we used to, or it wasn't even a joke, but you would at the end said, I've seen this play more than anybody else. That was my earlier play at the Actual Dance, and he did. And I hope to be in New York, by the way, in January, and maybe we get a chance to.
Well, yes, send me the dates. I'd love to see you. And if Susan comes along, love to
Oh,
see her.
I don't go any. See, this is the other thing with this disease.
Wonderful.
I'm not trusting myself to go anywhere without her.
No, I hear
And
you.
and um, I love it. You know, I love it. You know, these things also change relationships in
Yeah.
challenging. But somebody once asked us. I think you may have heard the story. A young lady asked Susan and I because we were being filmed for something at the local at American University, and after it was all over, she looked to make sure nobody was by, and she came up and says, "Your team seems so close. What's your secret?" And you know, the initial reaction is to be funny and say, "Yes, oh, it's yes, dear." You always agree with us. But I sensed that there was something more. Something's going on in this person's life. She was very serious in her ask. And I said something that I had not said before, and which I believe. And sometimes these thoughts in these ways are the truth. I said, well, we made a sacred promise to each other,
Yeah.
and you can't break those. And it, sadly, I see it broken a lot, but we are fortunate. I couldn't imagine that I was going to have to do what I thought I was going to have to do at the time and hold Susan as she took her last breath. Thank God I didn't. Now, our positions are changed, but there is a gift in being able to care for each other. And of course, the caregiver, I just want to pop in as soon as I said that, has to care for themselves.
Yeah.
She can't be here for me if she isn't also there for herself and has other friends, has other things of meaning, has the time to be able to take breath and feel confident I'll be okay. We're doing good. We're doing really great by that. Sometimes I have to think about it. But I've added that little scene to the end of the play where, well, in the play about her needing to say that she can be afraid and that needed to be able to say it to somebody else to just show how important some of these moments can be in these relationships. And anyway, I'm telling you what you know, but I could go on. We can't. We'll bore people.
No, but it's absolutely beautiful. And the gift is that, and it also came up in the actual dance in a reverse situation where you had a third person that you were talking with. You two know each other so well that you also respect the guidance from another person.
Yeah.
And that is such a strong, strong gift to share because a lot of people don't understand that.
And don't know where to look. And again, in this field, getting good, reliable information, which is you offered in all circumstances to caregivers. And I don't know if you still have it or Emblem does, but that was so important to have.
Yes.
And always looking for that reliable information. I called as the government shutdown came on. First of all, there's something called Alzheimer's.gov. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And they had this newsletter every month, and it was full of reliable resources and information. There are other places in the government to go for that. I called them and said, "How are you guys doing during the shutdown? Is this still going to be available?" She said, "Yeah, well, we're doing less. We're still doing once a month. But we still have a lot of our educational material. Would you like a little?" I said, "Sure." I had a UPS truck show up with 5 giant boxes of the material. Now,
I love it.
and the reason I have interpreted is they were afraid they might not be able to get it out.
Yes.
The shutdown, and they found somebody who they felt would be distributing it. Now, I don't get it out as broadly, but again, we're adding on time on this thing. It is but you raised it first, the circumstance we find ourselves in. And
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's wonderful.
yeah,
That's what, and there are so many people, and I keep trying to say thank you personally in my life to people who are still working during this insane shutdown. And it's wonderful to see the things that people are doing. And I think that was wonderful of you to make a call like that. I've made a few calls like that too, to parts of people that I know in the from the caregiving world.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen, Greg, we're going to keep in touch, and
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing you in January.
I hope everybody. By the way, Dementia Man, An Existential Journey, the book is out on November 18th. It'll be up on Amazon. And Greg's going to get his signed copy.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Oh, bless you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and blessings to each and every caregiver who's out there. As I always say, I begin and end or begin and end every speech I do wherever in the world I speak. I say I've come to say the two words that family caregivers rarely, if ever, hear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Sam.